Welcome to Crossroad Connection. We're speaking out for those left unheard. My name is Art Van Walde, and I'm the host. And today I have the privilege of sitting here with me, Mary Berghuis. She is warden of the Ernest C. Brooks and West Shoreline Correctional Facilities in Muskegon, Michigan. And on my note here, I have this wonderful little tidbit about her. She is the longest tenured employee in Michigan Corrections with over 40 years of service. Mary, that's amazing. And why don't you talk to us a bit about that?
What's amazing is that I'm still excited about going to work every day, and I spend a lot of time there because I get so much out of it. Well, I've been there a long time, and it's really a positive when you can say that, because over time you have things in place that keep everything kind of calm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the prisoners know you well, they know what to expect of you, and so that's calming for them. And then it's the same as true of the staff.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, you know, you get to learn prisoners so much better, what you can do, what you can't do. We used to be more nervous about the custody and security, in which we still, that's our highest priority, protecting the public.
Mm-hmm.
But along with that we have learned that providing excellent programs to prisoners makes such a difference in the quality of the culture and in terms of producing change. Because
Mm-hmm.
we know that 95% of these prisoners are going back to their hometowns and their communities at the end of their sentence. And I feel really compelled to have them go back, change people, people that are going to be law-abiding citizens and that are actually going to give back their communities.
Yeah, you don't want to see them come back, do you?
I don't want to see them come back more angry in terms of coming back to our communities, and that's very important. I don't want to see them come back more criminal.
Okay. Mary, what got you involved in corrections? Tell us the story about that.
Well, I was working in the state of Michigan, Department of Social Services. And I had an opportunity to go to work as a human resource officer for Muskegon Correctional Facility. And so I did that for 12 years. And then I always liked working with the people and meeting the clients. And I kind of missed that in HR, so I got the opportunity to become an assistant deputy for housing. And I took that opportunity, and then I became a deputy warden where I was for 10 years at Brooks Correctional Facility before becoming the warden there. What I do is so important because, again, I have the opportunity to really affect a lot of lives. And I've always been one that wanted to affect it for the positive, not the negative.
Okay. Mary, talk to us about some of the programs that are close to your heart that you see bringing change into inmates' lives. And, you know, specifically, if you can talk to us about some of the faith-based programs, that would be great.
It was in '09 that really I saw the most change take place in our facility. We were offered an opportunity to provide a God camp, and that's where children of the prisoners who are qualified for the program can come in and participate and get to spend a day with their dads. It's all supervised, but it's an amazing program, and it's geared toward helping the children, helping with some of their hurts about having an incarcerated parent. And 75% of the children of prisoners end up in prison, so we're trying to impact that. It wasn't, and God Camp is truly amazing. Most of us can't even relate to the differences these incarcerated parents have. But some of these parents have never met their children before that day. Some of the brothers and sisters have never met.
Oh, wow.
They come from all over the United States. Many have been estranged up to that time just because of the problems maybe the mother and father had over the incarceration. Some of these kids will never see their father again after that day because maybe they'll go to a facility where they don't have God Camp, or they may have a life sentence if they can't visit. And we know that only 12% of the prisoners have visits at all. And so after that happened, when I'd go out and, you know, before God Camp, when I'd go out and make my rounds, people complain about the normal prison things, the visits, the food, the property, the mail. But after that, all they talked about was how could they get their names on the kids' birth certificates? How could they connect with their children? Some, many of them don't even know where their children are. Even the prisoners that didn't have children, that didn't participate in God Camp, would express their appreciation because we hadn't changed our feelings for the prisoners, but their perception of us changed, and they thought now that we cared. And it just broke down all the barriers. There was no more them against us, it was all we. And it's just continued through the current time.
Now, you said something, you gave a statistic that shocked me. I'm going to go back to that statistic. 12% of prisoners
in Michigan
receive visitors. Can you talk about that at all? That's astonishing to me.
The department did a study, and that's what they found out. And the concerning thing about that is we also know that the prisoners who succeed on the outside when they go home are ones that have their family support and the community support. So the way we try to bridge the visit issue is that when volunteers come in, they provide that important social interaction so prisoners stay socially more conscious and more, they have more ability in the social arena to interact and to survive, really, because it takes that when you go out in the communities. It was right after God Camp, too, that Chuck Colson offered to come to our place for his Easter service. And that was the biggest crowd we ever had because we always controlled the crowds for security reasons. But out of 720 prisoners, 367 showed up.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
And they were the serious prisoners, the ones that had done a lot of hard time. And it was a very emotional day because you could see they revered Chuck Colson. And he gave them a perfect sermon. That made a big difference. He thought his impact would only last like 6 months. But I tell you, I know it has impacted us permanently. And from there, it just continued to evolve. We were offered Shakespeare Behind Bars, which was a program out of Kentucky. The founder had run it for 20 years at the time. But he relocated to Michigan, and he needed a place to do his Shakespeare program. And I was the closest to Holland where he was living, so he offered to come do it at our facility. And there were 22, I think, that enrolled initially. And it was so effective. It's been going since 2012. And we currently have 255 people voluntarily enrolled in that program. And they have changed the culture. They have really made a difference. And at the same time, we got offered the Urban Men's Ministry program from Prison Fellowship. And that involved another 30 prisoners. And it was a 3.5-year seminary equivalent program. And when these prisoners got through their program, they could go out in the communities and become lay pastors, or they could continue to do their work inside the prisons. And they had another huge impact on the culture. Again, we still had some violence, and I was concerned about it. And at a prison fellowship meeting, I ran into Kit Cummings from Atlanta, Georgia. And he does 40 days of peace. And he offered to come to my facilities and put on his program. And what he does is he gets 40 of the worst, most influential leaders and 40 of the best, and he puts them together, and they do a 40-day program where they swear to no violence. And his premise is at the end of 40 days, no one wants to go back to violence. And that's pretty much what's happened at my facilities. But since 2012, over 1,000 prisoners have been trained in that program.
Over 1,000 have gone through? Oh, wow.
And they love him, and he loves them. So he keeps coming back. But that is another important ingredient that went at our facilities that has changed the culture. Remove the barriers. The prisoners interact better. The barriers between the religious groups have broken down. So there's more going back and forth and acceptance of each other. It's unusual to say, but our prisoners even talk about caring about each other and their love for each other and watching out for each other. And
Well, that's what happens when the gospel changes people's lives. It grabs their heart. Reconciliation happens. We believe that the Holy Spirit makes us into new beings, and that's what's going on. They're becoming new beings, and they're treating each other with dignity and respect. That's amazing.
And then this year, finally, I started in 1998, but we finally had enough money put together at private donations because of the separation of church and state, and so we built a chapel at Brooks.
And when was that dedicated?
And that was dedicated May 17th, and the prisoners love that too.
How big of a chapel is it?
Well, it holds around 300 people.
Okay.
And we have different rooms in it so we can conduct different services at the same time. And we've made it a point to have all the different faiths have the opportunity to use the main sanctuary. And it's just been such a positive again. The prisoners feel so at peace when they're there in that sanctuary.
Well, you were telling me a story before we began taping about something that transpired about the prisoners surrounding the chapel. What happened there?
Well, that actually pertains to my other chapel, which is at West Shoreline. And that's really where I got my idea for Brooks Chapel, because they had one, and I could see what it meant to the guys in terms of, because they spent a lot of time there, and you could just see that it was so therapeutic for them. They really needed that space. And then one time after the 40 Days of Peace, we had finished our celebration. We were having pictures taken inside the chapel, and Kit Cummings, the founder, was called out in the yard. And we have night yard there. It's a level 1 facility. And there were around 400 prisoners, all arm in arm, praying for peace. And that represented the prisoners from all the different faiths. And it was really touching to see. On the Brooks side, there have been other examples. I remember running into a guy one day in our level 4, which is our higher security. He was so proud. He was able to tell me that he had stopped 15 fights himself. And later I saw him again, and he couldn't even tell me the number, but he had stepped in and prevented it. And he was so pleased. And there's just story after story that came out of those in terms of the impact it's had.
Well, let me ask you, Mary, are there other prisons in Michigan or maybe other prisons around the nation that are hearing about what's going on and starting to ask questions? How can people's lives change so radically? Are they looking and asking questions about what's going on?
I think there are a lot of people asking questions. Recently, Kit just published a book that came out on the 10th that has a whole chapter for my Muskegon facility and the other facilities in Muskegon talking about the change. I know it's gotten the attention of a lot of advocacy groups because the prisoners' family members are aware of it. The public's aware of it through the volunteers and other people that come in and put on programs. And well, I know we had one legislator in particular that used to come there often and participate and really made an effort to get to know the prisoners and what their real problems were and their needs. And I know he was pretty vocal about supporting us.
Okay. Well, Mary, we're going to take a break here for a few moments, and then we'll come back and we'll continue our conversation. It's been a joy talking with you.
Okay.
And we'll be back in a few minutes with Mary Berghuis, and thanks for listening to Crossroad Connection.
Are you in prison? Do you know someone who is? Through CBI Bible studies and encouragement from CBI instructors, more than 40,000 people behind bars are learning the truth about salvation through Christ and are developing deeper relationships with God. For an enrollment form, please visit us online at cbi.fm.
Welcome back to Crossroad Connection. Today we are talking with Mary Berghuis. She's the warden of Ernest C. Brooks and West Shoreline Correctional Facilities. And we've been hearing about how God is changing so many people's lives in the prisons that she serves. And I guess, Mary, as we were talking, that statistic keeps hitting me about 12% receive visitors. And I'm thinking of Crossroad Bible Institute and how our instructors grade lessons, they're writing letters of encouragement, sending that into the prison, developing a relationship with the person that is doing the material, taking the coursework through CBI. Talk to us. How important is that to have relationships with people?
Oh, it's critical to success when you get out. The more normal we can let prisoners be when they're out, we can help them be, the better off they are succeeding. And I kind of think about a time when I was at one of the churches that's very supportive, Ridge Point in Holland, and I was meeting a guy that had just gotten out of my facility. He had spent 37 years there. And it quickly became clear to me that the only place in the room he was comfortable was right near me. Because he had spent so much time there, that was such a part of his life that it's going to be difficult for him to get past it. But the more normal you can help people be when they get out, the easier the transition. The social interaction that prisoners don't typically have, you know, because they go through the court system. They spend time in jail. By the time they come to us, they're off drugs and alcohol, even though the department uses the statistic that 80% are high on drugs or alcohol when they commit their crimes. But once they get off the drugs and alcohol, they're sober, they're repentant about what they did, really sorry for what they did, and pretty much they spend the rest of their time regretting their behavior. A lot of them say they were out of control at the time and coming to prison saved them. But again, there are sanctions that prisoners have on them that really reinforce their negative self-esteem. And that, again, is very bad for them because they really need to get healthy so they can be healthy when they get out in the public. And when they don't get visits, and a lot of them are estranged from their family members because of their behavior when they came to prison, and so they lose a lot of that social interaction. And then prison, the very nature of the prison itself makes them guarded about their interactions with the other prisoners because they don't want to be taken advantage of or become victims either. So there's just more of that reinforcement. And it's the family members that do come in and participate that make a difference to those people in terms of keeping their socialization process going. And now with the volunteers that come in, it's a huge difference because especially the ones I have coming into my facility are just amazing people. If I were to write a job description for who I'd want to attract, those people are there. They would exceed that because they're just really good people, and they love the prisoners, and the prisoners love them. And the people that are participating with these volunteers, they go around the facility all the time beaming because it means so much to them.
Well, Mary, talk with me about what people can do in their local communities to volunteer in prison. I know many of the people listening are involved with CBI. They've graded lessons, they've written letters, and CBI is an amazing ministry that is impacting, you know, tens of thousands of lives around the world. But maybe someone's listening today and they're saying, I'm really enjoying this, but I want to take it to the next step. What can they do to personally get involved in their local correctional facility?
I think for most prisons, the person could contact their chaplain. And if they don't have a chaplain for some reason, it would be the administrative assistant or the warden's office. And just talk to them about what they'd like to do. We have volunteer classes all the time, and we provide them with a little orientation. Essentially what they do is have to go through a background check, which largely is impacted by the liens that we run on them. We have people of all ages come in. We have people in wheelchairs.
Okay.
It's amazing to me, but they're comfortable coming in. And it's good to have people of different ages and a diverse population too, because we have such a diverse population in prison.
They have to be 18 though, correct?
Yes.
They have to be, 18 and above.
Yes. And some of them come in because they want to do specific programming, and others are just saying like, I'm available, do you have something I can do?
Give us some advice, Mary. What would someone say to their pastor to maybe get their church involved in prison ministry a bit more? What advice would you give them?
They need to encourage it. We need people badly. We don't just need people coming in, but like, for example, I have all those programs going with crafts, painting, and that's acrylic painting. I have the quilting, I have the knitting, crocheting, we make stuffed animals. And anytime we can get material for any of those, it's just a blessing to us. Again, we provide these toys to Franklin Graham's organization, to a lot of local organizations to help out, but it certainly helps us if we have the materials.
Many years ago, I got to tell you how I got involved in prison ministry. I was actually mowing my grass.
Wow.
And a gentleman pulled up next to me in his car, and he wasn't even a member of my church. And he looked at me and he says, I've heard about you, and he says, I want you to come into prison with me. And I could see that there was an urgency in this gentleman's face, so I went into prison with him, and I was hooked. Mm-hmm. I was hooked.
And that's what just about everybody says when they come in. They're so amazed at the difference between the movie perceptions and what actually occurs.
Yes.
Because on the surface, most of them look more like a college campus than they do what we see in the movies.
Okay.
But, I think somehow prisons dehumanize people in that you think of prisoners, you don't think of them as individuals. But really what we have is a lot of individuals, and a lot of them are very gifted and talented. And, again, a lot of them made a mistake. A lot of those people will never make the mistake again because their lives have changed.
Yeah, whenever I've gone into prison, I've always felt safe. Mm-hmm. I've taken my wife in with me to prison. We've gone right into the units with the men, and I remember the first time she went with me, she goes, is this going to be okay? I says, this is going to be okay. Don't worry about it. They're going to treat you like a queen. Mm-hmm. And they respected her, and they did, and we taught our material, and they were interacting with us. Yeah, it's not like what you see in the movies.
Not at all.
Okay.
Because again, you see sober human beings that are just trying, like all the rest of us, to do what we should.
Okay, Mary, in the back of our studio here, we have a teddy bear. Can you talk to us about that teddy bear?
It's one of our programs. We have a prisoner who founded the teddy bears. Well, it's actually Bears for Unity, and he did it to bring, again, prisoners together for a good cause. The prisoners love to give back, and he takes that so serious. From early morning till late at night, he will be busy making bears and different stuffed animals.
Amy's bringing us the bear, so we can have the bear.
And we also make backpacks and other kinds of things, but it's just incredible what we do. And, to see grown men who really enjoy giving back and giving back like this. And it's quite a program. Okay.
I guess, Mary, as we're closing down this program, I guess I'd like to ask you, what words of encouragement do you have to give to our listeners, especially those who are writing letters and interacting on a regular basis with those who are incarcerated? As a warden, with what you have seen in prison, what words of encouragement do you have?
Well, I strongly encourage it. It makes a difference to people, and it truly is a need. It truly has the potential for changing people's lives. It may seem like a little thing to the person doing it, but it isn't little at all. And it's just like I tell the prisoners too, when they have children at home, and they they struggle with keeping connected, but sometimes what they can put in writing to them will express better their feelings than if they were out in the public with them every day, because they might take them for granted. But when they're writing the letters and that, it's just a good way to communicate still.
Yeah, and there's nothing like receiving a piece of mail.
Exactly.
When the prisoners get mail, they love it, don't they?
Yes, they do. That's a big part of their life. And a lot of them, again, probably don't get that much mail. I know at Christmas time we give out bags that the Inmate Benefit Fund pays for. And I will have individual prisoners slip in the room to me and say, if it weren't for this, I wouldn't have a Christmas. I'm really appreciative of getting this bag and their treats, of course, candy and that. But yeah, a lot of these people are very isolated, again.
So for our listeners, spending an hour and a half grading a lesson, writing a letter of encouragement, it's doing more for the prisoner than they realize.
Yeah, in the prison too, because we try to keep people constructively busy so they make good use of their time, and so again they change their lives. So when they get out, again they're going to be contributors and totally different people than they came to prison as.
Well, I do have one more question for you, and I hope you don't mind this question.
No.
But you've been involved in corrections for a long time. I have to ask the question, what's next? Have you thought about that?
Well, my next is probably doing more of the same.
Okay.
And I don't know for how long,
Okay.
we don't know, but I just feel like I'm supposed to be there for now. Again, because we've got so much in place that means so much to the prisoners. And a lot of those prisoners I've been with a long time now. I can remember one in particular I've been with 40 years. And
That's amazing.
yeah.
Well, I guess I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you and say, keep doing what you're doing. I was hoping I was going to hear that. Keep
Yeah.
doing what you're doing, making a difference for the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords in some of the darkest places. And I guess I want to say to you, thank you for loving the prisoner. That's what Christ calls us to do. Thanks for being with us today.
I was glad to be here. I feel it's important that the story get out correctly.
Okay. Well, thank you. And for all of you who listened to us today at Crossroad Connection, thank you for listening, and we look forward to you tuning back in with us again. Have a great day.